You probably might think why I'm looked that way. Well, you know, I was born in Soviet Union. No sex back then, so kids were given out by the Communist Party. And seems my parents wanted a monkey. The project went a bit awry. They hoped I would not never learn to speak. I also learned to write. Got worse. They sent me to school. Well, it wasn't really ascending. I went off myself. Just followed other kids. They were cool, you know. Teachers were a bit, oh, somebody came with a pet. Cool. You know, 90s, early 90s in Estonia, people were a bit confused. We didn't yet know monkeys were an endangered species. So it's okay. I loved going to school for first 2 years. It's a great time. You just don't do anything and you get grades. Sort of like now for 12 years. But back then only first 2. But then at some point, my dad, he was an old school guy, he was a cop, so he was like, son, you need to man up. I was like, okay, I'm in the 4th grade, how do you want me exactly to like do that? I mean, we live in Kopli, I can join a gang. He's like, well, it's not really productive, I still work in the police department. I'm not gonna tell them, they already know. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be joining a gang. I joined the gym, the wrestling gym. I thought, you know, I'm gonna get my ears in order. 5 years of hard trying, I'm still here. Me and Cheburashka, you ain't got shit on us. We are ready, representing. But one thing I learned in wrestling was that you have to be very confident with your sexuality to do that stuff. Oh, I mean, seriously. Nowadays, I like watching MMA for the same reason that all of you, to see people get fucked up. I mean, I kind of get the point of I know how they count the points after teeth. But I'm still like, I want to see that guy getting his head smashed in with a fist at least. And thank God for Octagon, otherwise it would be just people running in circle and yelling. Reminds me of my childhood. But in wrestling, the toughest thing that can actually happen to you, well, besides smashing your head into the mat, which is good because you pass out. You don't know what happens next because you don't want to. There's another guy lying on top of you, you're all sweaty. Reminds a bit of Borat, but then again. But in wrestling, the worst thing is what they call being in a parter, which means that it's basically doggy style for guys. Yeah, I know. Sounds awkward. Basically what happens, the 2 guys hugging, and if one of you loses the grip, for various reasons, you're sweating, for example, then the first guy to let go, a bit like relationship, right? He gets punished. And by punishment, he has to go on his 4s, arching his ass in front of the other guy. Now, a bit of history behind that, back in the day, wrestlers were naked and covered in oil. Bit like fitness nowadays. And now imagine you're there on your 4s, manhood, right? Your dad is yelling, don't give up, you're like, too late. I'm like, how much manlier can I get? I'm here on all 4s. My mom is like, oh, I know what's gonna come. I'm there. Even the referee is like, I cannot look at this shit. And you're just waiting, hoping to God it's gonna be over. Because the other guy knows that you are hoping. And he's true Estonian, he's gonna fuck up your hopes. In a second, he's gonna take his time, because there's no time limit how long you can actually traumatize the other person in front of you. I mean, okay, if you're gonna get into like Zhirinovsky speeches, Fidel Castro shit, like on 7th hour, maybe the referee is gonna be like, we have 10 more guys that need to be denigrated. Can you speed this stuff up? So the guy behind you, based on personal story, multiple times. So he comes really close to you. It starts with the toes. It's like, you know, touching a bit. Oh, so, because he knows he cannot step on your feet, but it's like trying. And then comes one of the most awkwardest parts. It's the kneeling down, because literally the other guy has to kneel behind you. Mm-hmm. No homosexuality, pure sports, manhood. You are there covered in cold sweat, breathing heavily, like, God, please let it be over. And you feel the other guy is just coming down slowly. That's just 1/3 of it. So now he's right behind you. Now comes the most important part from the point of view of the rules. his hands have to be on your, as the rules say, higher lower back. Whatever that means. So now you're like, you've already, like, back in ancient Rome. And now anatomy lesson comes. So since it's like higher lower back, most guys start from the shoulders. If you're unlucky, he has longer hands from the top of your head. Might sound romantic, not really. So you're there on your fours, he's behind you. Like, your dad is still, man up. You're like, yeah, thanks, Dad. So he gets, like, there's always this one guy who also touches your bum because, like, that's the higher lower back in Vuru. And he's there, now his hands are on top of you. And you already feel like I should have jumped off the roof a long time ago. And now comes the most important part. That's the part where you have to react to the referee's whistle, which means that if you're the doggy style dude, you know that when the referee is gonna blow my whistle, bitch, that was before that song, but same point. Your main objective is to drop your crotch on the floor as fast as possible. The other dude, the one who's there, like looking for your higher lower back, under the rules, he's supposed to grab you somewhere here, well, not really at the crotch, but that's what they all go for. 9 out of 10. There's this one dude who's like, shit, I'm not that manly. But if those guys are from Lasnama, oh, baby, you're losing everything. Like, opera is waiting. They're like, we have a next singer coming up. So, and right as the whistle gets blown, not literally, the other guy who's there, like on your higher lower back, he knows that there's this one trick that paralyzes everybody. So as soon as the referee goes to blow the whistle, he just goes, eh! And you're just paralyzed. Like, things that happen after that, you're losing crotch and stuff, you don't think about it because you think about the manliness inside you. Literally. And then you get off your mat, and the dad is like, wow, I expected so much more. And you're like, well, how much more can I give for that family? So wrestling after 5 years, well, one might say, became very manly. I know shit about doggy style you will not see in Kama Sutra. Can hook you up. So I gave that stuff up. I went to high school. I decided to try out some superior education. I moved to Mustama. He knows all about it. And in high school, I discovered rather early on that girls like me. I know, I was shocked as well. But it wasn't like nothing romantic. I mean, after that 5 years of wrestling, nothing gets more romantic than that. I mean, the first date is a bit ruined because you already know what you want to do, but it's been done to you so many times that you can mentally feel sorry for others. So I discovered the new superpower in me. It turned out that girls like me because I can lift heavy things in various positions. One of the perks of the wrestling training. And I had a classmate, and she was the first girl in our school to get the book on Feng Shui. God-forsaken day that was. Because she, very early on, like when she got the book, she very early on discovered that only I can fulfill her sacred dreams. That would be moving her couch every other day. Like after a couple of weeks, I knew that as soon as she would be walking down the corridor with that kinky walk of hers, I knew it's gonna happen again. I'm gonna be invited over. And there's only 4 corners in the apartment. I've seen them all. And slowly but surely, Christmas was rolling closer, and her parents decided to give her an early Christmas gift, a Feng Shui Bible. So she went from 30 pages to 300 pages. Not good for me. I mean, good for my physique, not good for my mental health. I mean, how many positions? I thought I had seen everything in wrestling. No. Turns out with Feng Shui, you can do things with furniture. Kama Sutra is Joe's. And after moving that furniture around for a couple of months, Her dad thought we were in a relationship. Joke was on him. I mean, he was an old school guy. He was like, there has to be a reason why that dude shows up every other day to move his furniture. I mean, he had seen his daughter, but he was like, well, she's not that convincing. And come Christmas, she showed up with her real boyfriend. And as soon as her dad opened the door, well, he was preparing since morning. He was a long distance driver, a trucker. So for him, preparing starting morning, Viru Valge and Kiluvõileib. Like, he was there. He started at 7 because it's Christmas. And by the time that daughter showed up with her future husband, he was like ready for World War IV, like skipping the 2 at least. And as soon as he opened the door, well, he saw his daughter, he saw that other guy, and instead of saying hi or anything, he just punched the dude out. Smack in the face. His daughter's shocked. She's like, Dad, what are you doing? And her dad's only question is like, where's Alexander? She's like, what? I mean, at home. Why? It's like, what do you mean, why? Where should he be? And he's like, well, the man who moves your furniture around should be here in my table, eating Christmas dinner with me. She's like, well, but why should he? Well, aren't you a couple? She's like, no, I'm coupled with Thomas. Here he is lying in his own pool of blood. Very festive. And her dad's like, okay, but why is Alexander moving your furniture around? Because she's like, well, because Thomas is a pussy. They're married now, it's cool. Thomas still cannot move the furniture around, so. Me and her dad, we make fantastic couple. He calls me up every time she leaves with Thomas. He's like, Alex, get the hell out of here. You will not have to touch the couch, but I have a new book on Feng Shui. So, high school was fun, graduated somehow, who knows how. Ended up in the university, nothing very eventful there. But then came the best part I've ever had. I went to the military service. Lovely time. I can speak both national languages of this country. That would be Estonian and, yes, exactly, Ida-Virumaa Estonian, called Russian. I did fine. I mean, I could both understand what most of my mates were saying about my sergeant. He couldn't. So depending on what I wanted, I would either translate or not. It was a bit this, like, depending on who was paying better. If the Sarge was like, no duty tomorrow, I'm like, all right, I'm going to tell you what the shit they told about you today. He was like, Popov, you're going to the presidential castle. I'm like, no, I'm not. Guys, that's what's going to happen. And the Russians are like, oh, Kara Sergeant. He's like, all right, Popov is staying here. Somebody needs to fucking translate. It was great. And that lasted for a while. And I still remember that when I got out of the army, I met a friend of mine. And he has a brother who's in a wheelchair. And I mean, it is tragic, but at the same time, in our digital society, fantastic thing was, they actually picked that dude to go into the army. The poor boy has been in a wheelchair since birth. And on his 18th birthday, he got the envelope. Estonian dudes in this room know the envelope. It's the one you don't want to get, but you always get on your fucking 18th birthday. It's there, waiting for you, all shiny. You're a bit excited for like 3 seconds before you see the stamp, Estonian government. They're like, oh, fuck. And you open the one up and they say, hey, we feel that you should join the fine force, protect Estonia, show up for the medical check. Now, the boy who's been in a wheelchair since birth, he's there in a wheelchair on his birthday thinking like, maybe, finally, my state loves me. Yes, they do. They're like, hey, show up, let's see whether or not you can qualify for military service. And a nice dude like he went. Imagine how shocked he was when they didn't take him. He was like, what the fuck? You send me an invite on my birthday and that's the gift you give me? I'm still thinking it's a big, even huge loss for our military. Because we could have had our own Professor X. He's already here. I mean, A, he has his own transportation. Saving money. Taxpayers will love us. So he can't speak since birth, but he can blink Russian, Finnish, Estonian, and English. Perfect spy. So we equip him with stuff, put some rocket launchers, you know, he's Professor X. He needs to be representing. Nothing too fancy, but, you know, a couple of grenade launchers. And imagine now that dude in a situation, the classically, we know who's coming, Latvians. And we put that dude there on a border, alone. He's Professor X. Now, you really think that the army of the opposing side will think it's a war? Like, when somebody's fucking pranking us? There's this dude in a wheelchair. Like, Spetsnaz is there going, we're not trained for this. That's serious. I mean, he can roll the whole way to Riga, and they're still going to give him free booze. So, I mean, after the army, still didn't man up. Decided to try out a new thing. I joined the real gym, lifting weights, you know, trying the heavy thing. Turns out that I'm not prepared. Not because I can't lift a heavy thing, but I don't do enough drugs. Because gyms in Estonia, it's freaking Breaking Bad. No, seriously, I mean, you can see that gym has not really worked out, but I'm still trying. I still remember first day back in the gym, I walk into the locker room, and I see like 3 dudes, I think there were 12, maybe 13, who knows. Drugs do things to people. And there was 3 of them. One of them had weights and a calculator and really big glasses. And the other 2, they had like small packets of white powder. And they were mixing this stuff like in a big jug, and they would pass the jug every now and then to the dude with the calculator, and he would do whatever the Breaking Bad stuff he was about to do. And I was paralyzed. I was like, wow, is that what the gym is all about? Oh, I thought it's about, like, you know, lifting heavy stuff and then washing and eating. No. It's the Breaking Bad. So I stepped up. I was like, kids. They were like, hey, granddad. I was like, what's up? What's that you have in there? They're like, you're too old for this. I was like, all right, all right. Well, I survived that. Everything before, I tried that one. Still trying to survive it. But I also realized that for me in the gym, it's tough because I don't have new gym clothes. I have my old gym clothes from the 90s, you know, the ones my grandmother bought me. I've taken good care of them. I wash them once a year, as you're supposed to. And it's tough because I don't fit in, neither with the guys from Breaking Bad doing whatever they're doing in the locker room, neither am I fitting in with the cool kids in the gym. Because I have 2 cheap clothes. Like, I go in the gym, people, they're at least 15 grand. Like, at least. Adidas, Lucci, Gucci, Drucci, whatever. I don't know stuff about that. And every time I show up in my old sweatpants and a t-shirt with the Soviet Union logo, like, they, on the one hand, they're like, wow, it's retro. And on the other hand, now he's really poor. Like, how can he afford my fitness? I tell you how, I got it for free. I sign up at the project. I promise to lose weight, gaining. Because I'm a keeper, not a loser, that's why. But we're gonna see what's gonna happen. And in addition to joining the gym, I decided to like man up the other way. I found a really manly job. I became a school teacher. Yes, I know. In this country, when a guy becomes a school teacher, well, it's a good hint they didn't took him into Catholic Church, so it's the other way around to kids. Who knows, maybe I haven't figured that one out. I've been a teacher for 10 years. I'm more depressed than ever. So I kind of figured out why male suicide is so high, especially among teachers. You try again and still fail. But I liked spring because of the COVID. Oh, not because of the COVID, okay. I liked the spring because I could spend 3 months at home as far away as possible from my students. Best thing ever. Because I finally started eating breakfast because I had time. My first time in 20 years I decided to try it. It was a very interesting experience because I'm single, just like Carl, we're keeping the same tone. And in my fridge, there are usually two things, vodka and milk. Or at least vodka. I mean, it's Mustamäe. You have to keep up the standards. So my breakfasts usually consisted of White Russians. It's a bit like eating your family, but hey, Hannibal Lecter would approve. And the toughest thing about White Russians for breakfast is, on the one hand, very nutritious. I have to say, it is. Tough thing is that you still like kind of have to work or resume. So I learned a couple of things. First and foremost, thankfully, as of yet, technology does not transmit smells. So you can have a meaningful class at 9 a.m. being completely wasted. Secondly, that's a bit of a technological advancement. Whenever giving a Zoom class, after a couple of morning shots of White Russian, hold on to the table. I learned it the hard way. I was about to give some home assignment and, well, I lost my balance. And by the time I get up from under the table, my dear students had logged on. They were like, we're not going to bother him. He's obviously, too busy getting smashed. And the most important thing, now that's, again, personal experience. Turn off your camera before you stand up. Well, I mean, I have lovely Moomy pants, but got some feedback from the parents on that one. Well, thankfully I didn't tell them that I'm usually naked, but it was one of those mornings I got a bit confused. So after the spring ended, the summer was a bit rough again. It was coming down from daily drinking to every other day. Because you could go out, so I tried that. And I discovered that I like underage parties. I relaxed, not because of what you thought. As a school teacher, that's where I made all my students. After 3 months, they're all there. I mean, I went to Peatus, I saw, wow, amazing, massive crowd. I didn't know that a cafe in an old train can be so popular. And then, as I got closer, I realized they're not in, they're outside. Because ISIC is not a document. The bouncer doesn't let them in. And I was like, oh, hey, age has a perk. But before I could get in, well, first I discovered that really the whole school was there. It was the school's out party, school's in, we are out there in 3 a.m. basically. And great stuff. You don't have to buy your own smokes when you go to the underage parties. You take them off from them. Well, I'm a responsible teacher. I don't want them ruining their health. I'm going to do it for them. I call it support. Police calls it blackmail. We're in the middle of negotiating that one. And secondly, you don't have to buy your own drinks. Turns out the movie pants are popular. And they give you the drinks, but it's sad because nowadays, I don't know what they put in that one. I tried one drink, like the kid came up to me, he's like, do you drink rum and coke? And since he was very polite, before my mind finished, you do not drink, ding, 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 ding. Because it's for free. I mean, with school teacher's salary, you take what you get. Not to be misconstrued. And the first day after I drank that stuff, I was high as a kite. Last time, she knows. Last time I was that high, I was 7 and I was smoking a newspaper. I thought I was amazing. My dad thought I'm not his. So the first day, I was like in my own apartment, like smelling voices, hearing colors and stuff. At one point, it got so bad, I called my neighbor going like, could you take it down a notch? I'm trying to sleep. And he's like, Alex, I moved out 2 years ago. I was like, for those of you who have not been to Soviet Union, great time. In the 90s, there was an Estonian TV show for kids called Pätu. Like, she's ready. She's like, fuck yeah, Pätu. I love that guy. And Pätu was a TV show about a family in Lasnamäe. Seeing Pätu. Like, it was like they were high or something. They were seeing an invisible thing in their apartment. I was like that family, only alone. In Mustamäe, going, whoa, what's happening? And on the second day, it got worse. I found out that there is such a fantastic musical collective as Viis Miinust. Oh, baby. Rammar all the way. I put on some Viis Miinust with, Jakub Kreem jumping in Spotify. Fantastic thing. I ended up in my kitchen doing lines, just as they suggested, out of flour. The best thing I had. Only white powder in my room. Like big, hefty lines. I did all the lines. Like literally. I was about to make myself some dinner, ended up doing lines. Fantastic. On a third day, I went to Viimsi to look for the legendary UFO. Nobody said that flower lines don't work. I didn't find the UFO, but on the fourth day, I woke up in a cold sweat hugging someone's UFO grill. It's still there in my apartment because I wanted to return it. It was like, stealing is not really pedagogical, but my hands were so shaky that before I could put up the photo of the grill on the Märgatud Viimsi's Facebook page, I put up my own photo. No one has called. I don't know why. I tried multiple times. They're like, leave us alone. You took it, you keep it. And the most amazing thing about all of that is that it reminded me of the time when I got roofied. Thank you. I know. Shocking, isn't it? It happened about 10 years ago, back in the day when they roofied people in Thailand right and left. It was before Sais Henna started making pelmeni. He was writing books then. And it was an interesting story because, I've never seen myself as a very roofiable material. But turns out there are some interesting people in this country. So I was walking towards my job. Back then I was working as a bouncer in a nightclub because supermodel places were taken. And I was walking towards nightclub, and my mom calls me, as she usually does at 10 p.m. And she's like, stop everything you're doing. I'm like, I'm not really doing anything, so it's a bit counterproductive, but okay. And she's like, I heard you work in a nightclub. I'm like, yeah, Mom, I've been working in a nightclub for 10 years. Thankfully, you heard now. She's like, what's the problem? She's like, I heard they roofie people there. I'm like, well, not just at our club, but yeah, technically. But, let's be honest, Mom, they usually roofie women, statistically. And some guys who look nice, but if you don't remember what they look like, I can send you a photo. And right after I finished that conversation, I got to the club, I got to work, and it took about half an hour, I got roofied. And just as I was passing out, a man came up to me and he was like, sorry, dude, I mixed up the glasses. I was like, what? Who did you want to roofie? He's like, my wife. I'm like, all right, never been married, but how is that like, is that a secret for a relationship? You want to have a strong marriage, roofie her every now and then? And he's like, no, it's our wedding anniversary. I'm like, oh, cool. What does that have to do with roofing? And he's like, well, she told me in the morning she wants to try something new. And I was like, well, never been married, but I doubt that was like top 3 of her pickings. Like, I don't imagine her waking up in the morning and, oh, honey made me breakfast. Gonna go out for a jog with the girls, and in the evening it's roofie time. But before I go, if there are people in here who look at me and think, that's something I would roofie, 2 things. A, I weigh 149 kilograms. Exactly. It's not going to be romantic roofing. It's going to be a very long way home. And B, if you're really at the point that you want to roofie me, just come up and ask. I have some Christian side of me, you need it more than I do. And after wrestling practice, I'm basically ready for anything. So, in the end, there are better options. Fantastic to have met you. My name is Aleksandr Popov. See you soon. Take care.